Well, good night. Today's case is a 31 years old man with fever, rash, pancytopenia, and abnormal liver function. First, what is the patient feeling? What signs does he has? Well, the signs that he has are fever, rash, pancytopenia, and abnormal liver function. But first of all, we need to know what is a fever. Let's see this video.
Hey there, Head Squeezers. I hope you're well, and if you're not, then this question is for you. It comes in from Droony187, who asks on YouTube, why do you feel hot when you catch a cold? Yeah, it's that time of the year, isn't it, where we all seem to have a case of the sniffles, and by that I really mean you're probably suffering from man flu, you're completely full of snot, you feel like you've got barbed wire in your throat, and your temperature is utterly sky high. Give me an ironic thumbs up if so far this winter you've been struck down. So what's going on? Well, your body heats up naturally. It's a natural response to fight the virus. You catch a cold if your body temperature drops, and also if you inhale droplets of water that contain rhinovirus or adenovirus. Those viruses are always about, but in winter, when your body temperature has dropped because of the cold weather and maybe you haven't been wearing enough layers, my coat's over there, your body just can't fight off that viral infection as well. In warmer temperatures, your body kicks off something known as the antiviral immune signal, which can defend against that sort of viral infection. But when it's cold, it can't do that as strongly. So the viruses set up a little Christmas party in your body, and that's why you get sick. Now, over the centuries, those viruses have evolved to work very, very well at your natural body temperature of 37 degrees C. It's the proteins that replicate themselves that work best at that temperature. Very crafty. So what your body does is it increases your internal temperature by 1 or 2 degrees. So it'll take a day or two on the sofa, or maybe watching a box set, or chilling out in bed, but your body will manage to fight off those viruses, and then it's party over. So unfortunately, those hot sweats may be keeping you up all night, but it is your body fighting back against the virus, so you just have to grin and bear it. That's all the time I've got right now. Please do keep sending in your questions. Stay away from those sneezers, and happy head squeezing.
Well, now that the video has ended, we can continue. Let's see. For fever, pyrexia, or controlled hyperthermia is when a human body temperature goes above the normal range of 36 or 37 centigrades, or 98 or 100 Fahrenheit. It is a common medical sign. As the individual's body temperature goes up, there may be a sensation of cold until the temperature plateaus. It means it stops rising. An elevated body temperature, fever, is one of the ways our immune system attempts to combat an infection. Usually, the rise in body temperature helps the individual resolve an infection. However, sometimes it may rise too high, and in which case the fever can be serious and lead to complications. What is a rash?
Know it in a minute. 1 Minute Media. Got a rash and not sure why or what to do about it? Rashes are a feature of many skin disorders, including eczema and psoriasis, but may also indicate an underlying medical problem, such as vitamin deficiency or autoimmune disorders. There's also the type of rash associated with an allergic reaction to something that's been eaten, or with which the skin has come in contact. Drug reactions, particularly to barbiturates and antibiotics, are also a common cause of rash. And of course, we know rash is a main sign of childhood infectious diseases, such as chickenpox and scarlet fever. Although rashes are seldom dangerous, self-diagnosis is not usually a good idea. Proper evaluation of a skin rash requires a visit to a doctor or other healthcare professional. The diagnosis will be made based on the appearance and distribution of your rash, the presence of any other symptoms, and the possibility of allergy. Any underlying cause will be treated if possible. An itching rash may be relieved by a soothing lotion or an antihistamine drug. An oatmeal bath can also ease the discomfort of a rash. So whether you're scaly, red, itchy, or all three, a diagnosis from a healthcare professional will lead to the best treatment and the quickest recovery.
Well, let's continue. A rash is a change of the skin, which affects its color, appearance, or texture. A rash may be localized in one part of the body, or affect all the skin. Rashes may cause the skin to change color, itch, become worn, bumpy, chafe, dry, crack, or blister, swell, and may be painful. The causes, and therefore treatments for rashes, vary widely. Diagnosis must take into account such things as the appearance of the rash, other symptoms, what the patient may have been exposed to, occupation, and occurrence in family members. Rash can last 5 to 20 days. The diagnosis may confirm any number of conditions. The presence of a rash may aid diagnosis. Associated signs and symptoms are diagnostic of certain diseases. For example, the rash in measles is an erythematous morbilliform maculopapular rash that begins a few days after the fever starts. It classically starts at the head and spreads downwards. What is a pancytopenia?
Pancytopenia is a medical condition in which there is a reduction in the number of red and white blood cells, as well as platelets. If only two parameters from the full blood count are low, the term bicytopenia can be used. The diagnostic approach is the same as for pancytopenia. Definition: anemia, hemoglobin less than 13.5 grams per deciliter or 12 grams per deciliter, leukopenia, total white cell count less than 4.0 x 109 per liter. Decrease in all types of white blood cells. Thrombocytopenia, platelet count less than 150 A, 109 per liter. The disease is marked by an inappropriate and ineffective T-cell activation that leads to an increased hemophagocytic activity. The T-cell activated macrophages engulf erythrocytes, leukocytes, platelets, as well as their progenitor cells. Such finding is common in the syndrome, which is also referred to as hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. Along with pancytopenia, HLH is characterized by fever, splenomegaly, and hemophagocytosis in bone marrow, liver, or lymph nodes. Iatrogenic causes of pancytopenia include chemotherapy for malignancies if the drug or drugs used cause bone marrow suppression. Rarely, drugs can cause pancytopenia. The antibiotics linezolid and chloramphenicol can cause pancytopenia in some individuals. Rarely, pancytopenia may have other causes, such as mononucleosis, or other viral diseases. Increasingly, HIV is itself a cause for pancytopenia. Causes: familial hemophagocytic syndrome, aplastic anemia, Gaucher's disease, metastatic carcinoma of bone, multiple myeloma, overwhelming infections, lymphoma, myelofibrosis, dyskeratosis congenita, myelodysplastic syndrome, leukemia, leishmaniasis, severe folate or vitamin B12 deficiency, systemic lupus erythematosus, paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, viral infections, alimentary toxic allergia, copper deficiency, pernicious anemia, medication, hypersplenism, osteopetrosis, low-dose arsenic poisoning, Sacco disease, chronic radiation sickness, Lig4 syndrome. Diagnosis: pancytopenia usually requires a bone marrow biopsy in order to distinguish among different causes. References: external links, EID Journal, CDC, December 2000. Ethiopancito Euro Universita Copyright Angers.
Well, now that we know something about pancytopenia, we can say that pancytopenia is a deficiency of all types of blood cells, including white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. It occurs when your body cannot produce enough blood cells because the bone marrow stem cells that form blood cells do not function normally. Occurs in two forms: idiopathic, in which case is not known but is often autoimmune, meaning that the body attacks its own tissues as foreign substance, and secondary, often caused by environmental factors. Approximately half of all pancytopenia cases are idiopathic. In other cases, viral infections, radiation, or chemotherapy treatments, drug reaction, and exposure to toxins may precipitate the development of pancytopenia. Symptoms of pancytopenia can include bleeding, easy breathing, fatigue, shortness of breath, and weakness. The decrease in white blood cells, which are involved in the body's defense or immune system, also leads to an increased risk of infection. This is common in measles. What do we know about abnormal liver function?
The liver is an important organ that sits just under your rib cage, mostly on the right side. It weighs about 3 pounds and is made up of two separate sections called lobes, the right lobe and the left lobe. By looking at it under a microscope, you can see that the liver is actually made up of billions of liver cells. Two major blood vessels, the hepatic artery and the portal vein, continuously bring blood to the liver cells. This blood is important because it allows the liver to perform many important functions, like filtering waste and poisons, processing nutrients, and storing fuel for your body. First, the liver cells filter waste, bacteria, and poisons out of your blood and change these toxic substances into safer ones. The liver also helps change certain medicines into forms that your body can use and then get rid of. Processing nutrients is another function of the liver. Most of the food you eat is eventually processed through your liver before your body can use it. After you eat, your food is broken down into small particles called proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Your blood carries these building blocks to the liver, where they are used to make and store many of the nutrients your body needs. For example, proteins are broken down into smaller amino acids, which the liver then combines into new proteins. There are many kinds of proteins, each with a specific size, shape, and purpose. Proteins are important for many bodily functions, such as clotting your blood when you get cut. Your liver also makes cholesterol and stores fuel for your body, such as vitamins and carbohydrates and minerals. On a regular basis, your liver sends proteins, fats, cholesterol, and vitamins into your bloodstream to be used for energy and building healthy tissue. Finally, your liver also makes bile, which is a fluid that dissolves fat. This takes place in the small intestine. Fats need to be dissolved so they can be absorbed into the bloodstream. In order for bile to get to your small intestine, the liver cells are connected to small tubes called ducts that eventually come together to form a larger passageway. This passage, called the bile duct, carries bile from the liver to the gallbladder, which is a holding area for the bile. The bile is then eventually delivered into the small intestine. Because the liver does so many important things for your body, you can't live without one.
Well, let's continue. About the case, let's see. There were two types of clinical diagnosis, rubella and atypical measles. Let's see the pathological diagnosis about measles.
Recently, there's been a lot of talk about measles. What does measles actually do, and should you vaccinate against it, or is this just hysteria? Measles is a virus. A hull of proteins, RNA, plus some more proteins for reproduction. It cannot reproduce by itself, it needs a host cell to do so. To understand measles, we have to understand the immune system. You might already have seen the visual system we developed to help here. Now, let's focus on the parts of the immune system relevant to measles. The measles virus enters humans through the nose, mouth or eyes. The measles infection starts in the lungs. Measles is especially good at infecting the body's first line of defense, macrophages, powerful guard cells that protect the lungs from intruders. They enter a cell and take it over. The virus reprograms the cell and transforms it into a dangerous virus production center. Once a cell is filled with viruses, they leave the crippled cell and begin the cycle over again. But the immune system has powerful weapons against virus infections, natural killer cells. These cells basically patrol the body and check other cells for infections. If they find an infected cell, they order it to commit suicide. This is so effective that for the first 10 days or so, you will not even notice that you're infected with measles. And now, the reason why measles is so powerful. After a period of fighting and dying, macrophages alert the brain of the immune system, the dendritic cells. The job of the dendritic cells is to collect samples of intruders, travel to the lymph nodes, and then activate the heavy weapons that eradicate the infection very fast in a team effort. But the measles virus uses a dreadful tactic. It infects the dendritic cells and uses them as a Trojan horse to enter deeper into the body. The infected cells travel to the next lymph node to alert other immune cells. Once it arrives, the measles virus spreads around the virgin T and B cells and infects them. It attacks the very system that evolved to fight it. Now, things happen very fast. The lymph system spreads the virus everywhere and it enters the bloodstream, infecting cells while traveling. Measles infects organs like the spleen, the liver, the intestines, and most importantly, the lungs. The symptoms range from a very high fever, headache, sickness, bronchitis, and of course, a rash. In the lungs, the immune system was doing pretty okay, but now millions of viruses attack a second time and kill countless cells, wiping out the defense systems. In this phase, you start coughing out millions of measles viruses. Measles is so contagious at this stage that if you meet someone who isn't vaccinated, there's about a 90% chance you'll infect them. Without the protective army in the lungs, other bacteria or viruses that would usually not stand a chance can now enter the lungs and develop into harmful parallel infections that can cause pneumonia, the most common way to die from measles. Your body's immune system is now seriously wounded. Various protective systems are hurt and disrupted. The virus spreads everywhere, infecting the skin all over the body. The typical measles rash now becomes visible. And in some cases, the measles virus reaches the brain and causes a brain infection. If it does so, the chances of dying are between 20 to 40%, and there may be long-term damage. But your body is far from giving up at this stage, and it fights back aggressively. Some dendritic cells survive long enough to activate the antivirus forces of the body. Plasma cells in the lymph nodes start producing billions of antibodies, tiny proteins that mark infected cells for destruction or clump the virus together. Killer T cells flood the body and kill infected cells left and right. After 2 to 3 weeks, the body usually gets the upper hand and overwhelms the infection. But the immune system is now seriously weakened and may take weeks or months to recover, leaving the body vulnerable to other diseases. But if you make it, you are now immune. The immune system remembers the virus forever. Measles is no joke. Although 84% of all humans are vaccinated against measles, 122,000 people died because of the infection in 2014. Some people cannot get vaccinations, either because they're too young, because of chemotherapy or HIV, or because they're allergic to the vaccine. They need the rest of us to stop the disease for them. The measles vaccination is safe, cheap, and available. There are no benefits from having measles at all. You don't strengthen your immune system, and it's not more natural. Most people who don't vaccinate only want the best for their children, which is honourable. But if you ask yourself, am I putting the life of my child and other children at risk by not vaccinating against measles? The sad answer is yes. Yes, you are. Let's not play the blame game though. Let's work together and eradicate this virus. Together, we can get rid of these dreadful monsters and consign them to their rightful place, the history books.
was so interesting. Let's see what we else have. Well, this is the end, but there are some things we have to say. For example, measles is one of the most common infections here in Ecuador. In here, measles have killed a lot of people, and actually the government and all the institutes of healthcare have been doing a good job, because they have been doing some campaigns against measles and have been vaccinating a lot of people. Well, thanks for watching. Good night.